You see, now we're recording. So Gunilla, can I invite you to introduce yourself and tell us what the webinar will be about today in our SIETAR Europa webinar series?
Sure. I'm okay. Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, good morning, because I already heard from Agnieszka that we have people with their feet touching in different places, the ground in different places in the world. Me, myself, I am based in Antwerp, and I will be telling you a lot of things about a research that we conducted now about 1.5 years ago on the management of different philosophies of life, different religions in small and medium enterprises in Belgium. And it was a really interesting research for us. We took a lot of concrete examples, experts' advice from it, and we thought it would be a great opportunity to share what we learned from this experience with all of you, and also to get some feedback from you in this webinar. So I'm going to share a presentation, if it's okay with you, and then I will be switching also back and forth to a Mentimeter to make it a little bit more interactive. But before we start, I also want to tell you that everything I will be talking about tonight, you can also find information on the website that we've developed in the project. And I will already copy the link to the website in the chat so that you have this information, and I really don't forget to share it with you later. So this is the website from the project where you will find all the results, and also everything is in English, so it's open to everyone. Okay, so let's switch to the presentation, and then I can really start sharing our experience with you. Just going to share the screen. Oh, the host disabled the participant screen sharing. So I'm not sure if Agnieszka or Julia, you can give me the right to share again so that I can share the PowerPoint.
Done.
I'm going to try. Okay, now it's possible again. No problem. Just a second to be sure that I'm doing the right thing here. Okay, here we go. So what I want to do is share with you the story of our research in 10 principles, because there was a lot that we discovered, and we tried to make it more comprehensible by bringing it back to 10 management principles. So that's a bit of the setup for tonight. I will mainly be sharing the principles with you. If you want to know more about the concrete examples or the expert advice that is connected to each of the principles, please also check out the website, because there is a lot more information to be found there. So maybe just briefly, to give you an idea of my background. So I'm a coach and lecturer at the University College for Applied Sciences in Antwerp, in the middle of Belgium. And I work there in the Center of Expertise for Public Impact. What we do in that Center of Expertise is that we try to think about how can we make public spaces, and often that is events or cultural venues, because that's a bit of our focus. How can we make them more inclusive, more safe, more sustainable? How can we make them more accessible for everyone? That's the main focus of our work. And we do this with different targets. So inclusion is one of them, but indeed also to think about safety, but also to think about ecological sustainability. These are things that we are working on. So what we do is we connect with our community, our work field actually, and we listen to them and we see, okay, what are your questions? What do you want to be talking about? And one of the things that of course, that came to our attention, and was that in the reality that the organizations that we support, the reality that they are working in is that it's becoming more and more diverse. So this information is in Dutch, but I think you can imagine a little bit what is said here, namely that in Belgium, as in many other countries of the world, there's more and more people with diverse backgrounds, also in the workforce, in education, and we are looking for ways to harness this diversity in a very positive, very energetic way. So not as to see it as a problem, which often in media still is the focus that is chosen, but actually to see this diversity as a possibility to come to a more creative, more innovative way of working. And specifically in the sectors that we are targeting, like the event sector and cultural sector, this is not an unimportant added value of diversity. So that's what we want to do, is start from this reality, start from what is actually happening in society, and then aiming for the added value. Thinking about, okay, if we can harness this diversity, if we can come to a more inclusive way of dealing with these differences and also the similarities, what can we gain? And I think this is not new to you, but it's always good to still bring it back to our attention. We can gain things from harnessing this diversity, and that's, for instance, economic benefits, but also social benefits, but of course also innovation, attracting more talent, which at the moment is of course very important with the whole war for talent. Retain talent, this is also an important element that we want to focus on, and looking for more happy and productive employees. So that was a bit of the basis that we wanted to work from. And then we wanted to target this specific question of different philosophies of life, because often when we come in companies or we come in contact with organizations and they say, oh, we want to work around diversity and inclusion, they don't say that they want to focus also on the differences in philosophies of life. But when we ask for concrete examples or concrete challenges or concrete questions that have to do with diversity, often they are in this context of different philosophies of life. So we wanted to take this focus and see if we can make this a little bit more tangible for these organizations. We also wanted to focus on the small and medium enterprises, because we felt that they are often overlooked when it comes to this inclusion and diversity management principles, because then often we look at very big companies, while the dynamics in small and medium enterprises are different. But we also felt that there are opportunities there. And you will see this immediately when I share with you the broad frame that we developed when we wanted to talk about this topic. Actually, we wanted to focus on three important elements, three important pillars that can support or create a greater sense of inclusion in the workplace. And to the right, you can see, for instance, this element of adopting an inclusive leadership style. And for us, this was very specific element that for small and medium enterprises is really a lever, because there we can often see that the person who founded the enterprise or the person who created the enterprise, the small or the medium enterprise, is still a very important person within this context, and can also really activate this leadership role, this inclusive leadership style. So this is something that we really wanted to focus on, and we thought in this context this will be possible. So I will be going with you through these three different pillars, and in each pillar there are different management principles that we feel that can support this working towards a more positive way of managing different philosophies of life or differences as such in these enterprises. So the first one that I want to draw your attention to is the one for building an exclusive slip of the tongue. Of course, it's the opposite, building this inclusive atmosphere. how can we go about it? And let's maybe start with a little exercise, because inclusive atmosphere has a lot to do with dialogue, and we've not been able to be in dialogue yet in this webinar. So I want to show you an image, and then I would like you to answer a question on this image to me, but if possible, let's do this in a Mentimeter. So you can see a painting here, and I want to invite you to open the page www.menti.com and give me an answer to the question that you see here. What title would you give to this painting? So you can find the code for the Mentimeter in the presentation, sorry. And I can also, if you want to, share it in the chat. Just going to stop sharing for a minute to give you the code, and then we can go back to the image. So the code is coming up. So let's see if some of you could already find their way to the Mentimeter, and then you can see the image there also. What title would you give to this painting? How I see you. So I'm going to share your answers already with you.
Gunilla, can you share the painting one more time? No, still the painting. I think not everybody maybe had a chance to really look into it.
Okay, just a second. Here we go. So it's painting. And let's see if we can already see your answers. How I see you. Woman moving to the next dimension. Mosaic. Self-portrait. Lincoln looks on. Leaving. Some more poetic titles there. My world. Dali's vision of women, religion and dimensions. Okay, so it seems that some of you know this painting, and maybe for some of you it is new. But what we do see here is that, of course, and this is what we expected, that there are many different possible ways of looking at this painting and many different possible perspectives that we can take on it. And also when we look at it, of course, we bring our own frame of reference to this painting or to what we see. And sometimes this results in the fact that we have very, very, very different ideas on what we are seeing. And this is actually an important element when we want to talk about this pillar of inclusive atmosphere is, will we be able to set up kind of intercultural dialogue or cultural dialogue within our enterprise? This is, of course, not easy. I think we will all recognize that often we feel a lot of apprehension about this, specifically when we talk about differences in philosophies of life or religious differences, that there is some often this feeling of taboo, or we can't discuss this, we can't ask these questions, or we can't really go into it in depth. And this is something that we really felt when we were talking to the people in the enterprise, that they feel this that they felt this apprehension, and we were thinking about, okay, how can we go beyond that? How can we really motivate them to come to this cultural dialogue where we can share perspectives, where we can share different ideas, and that will allow us to also talk about our different backgrounds. So this is the first and important element within this pillar of inclusive atmosphere. Of course, it's not the only one. And actually, you will recognize it when you look at management principle 4. There you will really recognize this need for the cultural dialogue, for the strengthening of inclusive competencies, because being able to have this dialogue and going beyond taboos is part of this inclusive competencies. And it also has to do with being willing to and open to broaden your knowledge. So while this is principle 4 within this first pillar, I wanted to stress it first because I think it's also kind of a prerequisite. When we want to talk about this inclusive atmosphere, we will have to be starting from this ability of communicating about differences and similarities. So, but there are other elements in this first pillars, and one of the first elements there, and maybe it's a bit surprising because I jump a little bit from something which is maybe less tangible, like the cultural dialogue, to something which is then very concrete. It's like the measuring and the monitoring of differences within the organization. Nevertheless, we felt it very important to stress this element first because often this is overlooked. People start with an inclusion plan, they start with a diversity plan, but they don't set up the procedures or the structures that can help them keep on track, that can help them really think about where do we want to go and really set out specific targets in their inclusion efforts. So we felt also it's important that you monitor the composition of your staff, but also how people are feeling. And if they are feeling that they are belonging to the organization, if they feel that they can really express who they are, if they feel that they can really bring to the work floor what they want to bring, and can you be yourself during working hours? Do you feel you belong? Do you feel you are recognized? These are questions that you can introduce into satisfaction surveys or pulse surveys that can help you measure and monitor the inclusive thinking, acting, and feeling within the organization. This is maybe a little bit different to what you were possibly thinking when talking about measuring and monitoring. Maybe you were also thinking, I should be also measure and monitor how many people from different philosophies of life are present in the organization. Of course, this is different. We don't want to stress that as an action because people can be apprehensive about that. Of course, it is important to have some kind of concrete idea of the diversity in your organization, but you could maybe then use other insights to map that out. For instance, differences in mother tongue, or differences in indeed national backgrounds, or differences in migration backgrounds, and not so much really registering on differences in philosophies of life, because this can feel quite awkward. So it's more about measuring and monitoring the general atmosphere and if people feel that they belong. So working from facts is one important first management principle. Another one is, of course, if you want to work inclusively, you want to, of course, attract diversity in your organization. There's also some specific things that we should look at when we talk about different philosophies of life. If, for instance, in a selection process, in an interview, will you be talking about this topic of philosophical differences? There, we discovered in the organizations we were researching, but also in the talks we had with the experts, that it's very important to of course, not question these things when you are, for instance, in an interview, but when there are questions about the possibility to bring different philosophies of life to work, that you are prepared for these questions, and that you have thought about what your answer will be, that you are clear about what can we offer. For instance, can we offer a quiet room? Can we offer moments to practice religious rituals? Can we Are we able to adapt schedules or work plans to fit in religious rituals? So this is important that you are prepared to answer these questions, and specifically when we go to the moment of welcoming inclusively and starting the onboarding, that you can proactively give information about this. But of course, in the moment of the selection or moment of the interviews, that you don't really use this information in a biased way, so that you don't bring this into the conversation in an inappropriate way. So it's a bit of this give and take. Be prepared to answer these questions, but don't, of course, bring them to the table when it's not appropriate. So this recruitment, selecting and onboarding inclusively is a bit of a balance there. Because this is such an important topic, we are now conducting actually a follow-up research on how to recruit, select, and onboard inclusively. And by mid-October, we will presenting also, here it's only in Dutch, but we're also translating it to English. We will be presenting a toolkit on inclusive recruitment and selection, where we will be offering 10 levers with also some challenges, some concrete tools that you can use to actually make your recruitment and selection processes more inclusive. So I already shared the link to our website with you. From mid-October on, you will be finding more information also on this specific topic there. So be on the lookout for that. Of course, linked to that, to this whole onboarding and recruitment and selection process, is the idea of communicating authentically. Also, when it comes to religious and philosophical differences. For instance, when you put team photos on your website, when you use team photos in your employer branding strategy, very important to paint a real and authentic picture, and not to show things that you are not able to really realize, which still often happens, that organizations show pictures which are not really authentic and not true, and then people enter in the organization and they feel a bit defrauded. They feel, but this is not the reality. So very important there to show an authentic situation. So on the other hand, also, if you have some ambitions to become more inclusive, to become more diverse, also try to show that, because this will help you to reach a more diverse target audience. So again, there's the balance between what you put forward, and the balance between how you will respond to questions or to perspectives that people who are interested in your organization will bring to you. Then, and I come to what we started with the image that we looked at together. So it doesn't stop, of course, to create the inclusive atmosphere doesn't stop when you are recruiting. Very important is also to keep up this cultural dialogue when people are in the organization, so that we can really go for this retaining of people, so that they can really create this sense of belonging, or have this sense of belonging. And tips there can be to have some training around philosophical practices without them becoming, of course, stereotyping. And so,
Gunilla, we have a question, if I may interrupt.
Of course.
There is a question, what do you mean by philosophical practices?
Sorry, it's the practices so that are linked, for instance, to different religious perspectives, or to different convictions. So that's, we made it broader than just religion. So we wanted to talk about philosophical differences, not only to focus it on specific religions, because in Belgium, often when we talk about this topic, then we come to always a discussion, for instance, the differences between Catholicism and Islam, but we wanted to have this broader scope, so that it can be about different walks of life, different life convictions. So I hope this answers the question a little bit. But we wanted to talk on the level of both practices as also the conviction. So it's about what we can see, but also about how people feel and what is important for them to feel this sense of belonging. Okay. Now, so that was the first pillar. That's actually creating some prerequisites. But as I already said before, what was important for us in this whole context of the small and medium enterprises was also this idea of inclusive leadership. How can we use this as a way to, as a catalyst maybe for inclusion within this organization? So, and maybe I want to do a little different exercise with you there also to help you understand a little bit what we wanted to do in this pillar. So I don't know if it's possible. I'm going to stop sharing, and can I ask the participants, is it possible that the participants activate their cameras so that we can no, it's not possible.
It will be difficult.
That, yeah,
there is too much of us to even, you know, be able to scoop around. And
yeah. Because the thing I wanted to do is, I will then just tell it to you what was the idea. I wanted to check with you this concept of ownership, which is very important when we talk about inclusive leadership, to have the owner be of the enterprise, for instance, to be willing to take ownership also of this inclusion process. And the question here was, if I would ask you, but we can do it still, and maybe it can give you this idea. So to go for ownership, if I would ask you some questions, and I would ask you to put up your hands, and but you can keep your fingers closed, and then I would put some questions to you, and each time that you can answer the question with yes, you could actually open one of your fingers. So and then we could see what results from this. For instance,
we can switch it, then we will be opening our fingers, and at the end everybody will give the final number in the chat. Therefore,
good idea.
We will see how many fingers each person scored. Okay.
Okay. So get your fists ready, and then I can ask you. So each yes is a finger in the air. So lift your finger if you have never had many or any financial difficulties. Second, lift your finger if you have a decent house with a telephone and a television. Third, lift your finger if you feel that your language, your religion, and your culture are accepted in the society in which you live. Lift your finger if you feel that your opinion on political and social issues is important and that it's listened to. Lift your finger.
We have a request. There is a bit too fast, so can you just speak slower?
Very good. I will.
Thank
so
you.
The question was for the fourth finger, or possible. Lift your finger if you feel that your opinion on political and social issues is important and that it is listened to. Fifth question. Lift your finger if you feel if other people ask you for advice on different things, if you're often asked for advice. Sixth finger, lift your finger if you're not afraid that the police will stop you. Lift your finger, seventh, if you know where to go to if you need advice or help. Lift your finger if you have never felt excluded because of your origin. Lift your finger if you have access to adequate social and medical services according to your needs. And last, lift your finger if you can go on a holiday at least once a year. So 10 questions. And now you can actually check your own hands. how many fingers are lifted, how many fingers are closed. And if you want to, you can indeed answer it in the chat and give us some idea. And indeed, very good. That's this idea of privilege. And why do I want to check that, or why do I want to bring this in here? Because if we had a camera now, we could see, I see some people 6 fingers, 9 fingers, 7 fingers, 9, 7, 8. So if you have 8, 9, 7 out of 10 fingers that are open right now, that means that you have actually the ability to use your hands and to take up problems, to take up challenges that are coming your way. That actually you have the space to move, you have the ability to influence things. And this is actually an exercise that we did with people within the small and medium enterprises, and specifically the leaders there, the leadership, management, the owners, to give them this idea that they have ownership, that they have the possibility to act. Because often when we come to these organizations, they say, I don't know what to do. It's not up to me. I don't know if I can have any impact. I don't know if I can actually really make a difference here. And we want to really get it into their heads. No, it is your responsibility and you have the capability. And most often, the people who are in the lead in these organizations, they are able to open many of the fingers answering these questions. And with this privilege, you could say, comes also kind of a responsibility. So this is what we wanted to introduce with this exercise, this idea of ownership. Feel able to do something, feel able to really act within your organization. Now, how can they act? If the inclusive leaders within this organization, what can they do to create a more safe or safer environment for differences, and specifically then for religious differences or philosophical differences? So again, there's a few management principles there, and you see them listed here. So first of all, creating a safe environment. Second of all, developing a support base, working together or co-creating around this inclusion. And lastly, promoting inclusive thinking and action. So let's go through them again, as we did in the other pillar. So creating a safe environment, of course, here we introduced the concept of covering. Also within the enterprises. So the idea that often people, and this is often true for minorities within the work environment, that they feel that certain elements of their identity they cannot show, they cannot share, they really have to hide these elements of their identity, and they will develop strategies to hide this. People don't feel safe enough to show all the aspects of who they are. And they this really can create also feelings of stress, feelings of disconnection, and really has a very negative effect on retention. So the managers have this exemplary role to create this safe working environment, and to really also, when they see discovering going on, to really halt it, and to really make people understand that this is not necessary. So I think you all know this little film of the real you. I'm not going to show it now because I suppose that you've seen it already in some other context, but this remains the truth in still many organizations, that people feel like, oh, I can't really express these elements of my identity. So, and it's specifically not when my manager is around. So creating a safe environment is a very important task for the leader there. And how can you do that? Well, by asking questions, again, engaging in dialogue, but avoiding, of course, stereotyping here or typecasting. Not always asking the same questions to the same people all the time, but on a more day-to-day level, during daily conversations, individually or in team, give room to this conversation about differences, asking about employees' personal experience, their individual needs, and also the requirements they experience. And you can open up this discussion to religion or different philosophies of life, to see what resonates with colleagues. And important here is also to enter into the dialogue with people who seem unconvinced or show resistance to these differences, or also take into account their minority voice. Also ask them what they need to go along with new approaches. For instance, when you want to set up a quiet room where people have the possibility for their moment of prayer, don't only discuss it with the people who will be using this room, but also discuss it with people who you know are maybe not interested in this, but also ask them what do they need to support this new or this intervention in the workspace. And this, of course, also links it to the second management principle for the leadership, is to build a support base, because the inclusion is something that is jointly created. So do you need to connect with everyone about every decision that you will take as an inclusive manager? Maybe not, but you do need to hear people's voices, as we said, also the minority voices, and also very important that you might want to create a group of ambassadors, and that people know that when they have questions or they have doubts or they have needs, who they can go to and who they can talk to, where they can actually start up the conversation. So be open to this dialogue and make it part of everyday operations, not only in specific moments or not only in special moments. Lastly, very important when we talk about this inclusive leadership is how do you respond to exclusion in the workplace? And again, here we can share a question in the Mentimeter, a question that we also asked to the people who are part of our research, so the leaders in the enterprises. How do you respond to exclusion in the workplace? When you see exclusion happening, when you see maybe even discrimination happening, how will you actually respond? So maybe you can go back to the Mentimeter and also share your choice there. How would you respond to exclusion in the workplace? And I will try to share also the results with you. Oh, I'm a bit too fast here. Let's go back one. Oh, okay. Well, because there it might seem very easy. Of course, we will want to say, I will react immediately, I will name the issues, but I think we can also imagine that it's not always easy for people to be so clear on how to react, and that there are still a lot of people who will react more in an evasive way, not to rock the boat, not to take away the harmony in the team, not to make the conflict escalate. This is the answer that we often got from our respondents. Well, actually, I think I should react quite clearly to exclusion, but most often I still react more evasive. So this is also something that we should recognize, that people have this hesitance. And what we did then, or what you can find on the website or the platform, is that we actually try to give them some support, for instance, by also explaining the legal requisites to them, and also explaining to them, okay, what is discrimination, how does it work, what you can, where can you also find support when you want to open up this conversation in your team, but also really make it clear that it's their responsibility as a leader to set the example, and to be very clear that there is no place for exclusion in the team, because this is, of course, the biggest mortgage on a safe environment, is if you don't immediately react to exclusion. So it's one of their first priorities, and they really have to capacitate themselves to respond to this exclusion in the workplace. Okay, so indeed, to promote this inclusive thinking and action, the manager is a role model also in dealing with exclusion, or also in moments when things are not going so great. Both in what they say as in how they behave, they will take on this role model responsibility. Another way to execute this role model responsibility can indeed be to also find ways to really focus on similarities within the team, and not always only focus on the differences, but really also see on what connects us, what we share. So these were some of the elements that I wanted to share with you about the inclusive leadership style. And then looking at the time also, we will move into the last pillar that we wanted to explore, and this is one of the inclusive practices. But maybe before we go there, okay. The inclusive practices, what can we find there? And this, of course, a bit of the culmination where we bring everything together, because this is what people will really experience and really will support their sense of belonging. So just another example. What do we think of when we talk about inclusive practices? Well, I was on my holiday this summer. I was in Naples, and this is maybe some of you have visited Naples will recognize this. This is something that you will find there, a certain place where you have a view of the bay and a view of the volcano. Well, you will see this bar in Braille lettering. And what is so remarkable about this? Well, it's because this idea of people who have visual impairment can also enjoy the view of the Bay of Naples. So this idea, okay, how can we make this experience, this environment accessible to everybody? So this is just a clear example of an inclusive practice, and maybe not linked to differences in religion or philosophical differences, but a very good example of an inclusive practice that will help everybody share and everybody feel this same experience. So it can be as easy as that. So that's something that we also wanted to convey in our research and in the tips that we developed on the basis of the research. It doesn't always have to be very big. Also with very small interventions, you can make a very big difference for the people within your organization. So some management principles linked to the inclusive practices. Check if you can tailor facilities to personal needs and wants wherever possible. Make task schedules and holiday arrangements as personalized as possible. And of course, and this is the culmination, and encourage connectedness in and beyond the workplace. So for the first one, well, actually there it's take a broad scope on what people are actually asking you. Often when we get a question, we have this tendency to really focus very much on the why of this question. For instance, if someone would, is there a difference if someone will ask, can I go for a smoke or can I go pray? So you could say, yeah, it's a very big difference because there is a different idea behind it, but you could also see it as a very similar question. Actually, the person is probing or asking for a short break. And is it possible within your work planning and your work environment that people take short breaks? If this is possible, well, maybe then it's not such a productive thing to be focusing on this why. If this is a question that has to do with religious differences or a question that has to do with maybe family arrangements, for instance, people who want to take a break to check something for their children. So this is the idea that we wanted to give, try to move away from this ideological understanding of the question and see more of the functional and the practical understanding of the question. Is a short break possible? Another idea in this idea of tailoring facilities, again, the dialogue. When you prepare, for instance, a nice get together, don't only prepare it from your own perspective, but take the time to check with the people who you will be inviting. What are their needs? What do they want? And you can do this very simply by just sending out a Google form and checking what are their dietary needs, what are maybe good times for them to meet. So really opening up to discussing these very practical arrangements, which often we forget because we start planning, we're very enthusiastic and we think, we will do this, we will do that. And then we don't take the chance to really understand what are different needs within the organization. Linked to that, you can also think about personalizing task schedules. And again, there the dialogue is very important to take the time to check what is important for people. For instance, fasting periods, religious holidays with variable dates. Prepare yourself, make it part of your work calendar. Educate yourself on these different holidays, for instance, so that you can know, okay, in our schedule, what do we need to plan ahead for? And indeed, when we checked it within the companies that we interviewed, often it was really possible to make these temporary adjustments to work packages. It's just something, it takes a little time, but it is possible to do it.
We have a request. Could you share the link to the YouTube video you shared for a second? Or if we still have time, you can play it because it seems not everybody is familiar with.
I will do it in I see we have 10 more minutes, so I will do it right before the end. Okay, and then also share the link.
Thank you.
Okay, I see someone already shared it, so that's good,
you,
we can watch it together. So to sum this up, this last pillar, so indeed it's all about the connection in the workplace. Inclusion is all about the connection. It doesn't happen by itself. To create this sense of belonging, encounters are crucial. So also in your work schedules or around the work schedules, see that you have these moments for informal social interactions because they are very important to create this connection. This is something that we also learned from the companies that we worked with, that they take a lot of time for these informal social interactions. Can be a get together, can be after hours, but they really always invested in this. Or can also be in the makeup of your offices, in the makeup of your workspaces, creating a cozy seating area. It doesn't have to be difficult at all. It doesn't always have to be something intentional. Can also be just a place where people can meet in the day and where they can really share experiences. If you want to know more about this, how you can go for this connectedness, again, by mid-October, we will be launching some more materials. We've been working on some workshops that you can use to support inclusion in your teams. And you will find 22 interactive activities will become available through the website, 22 experiential activities with debriefs linked to them that you can use to foster dialogue in your organization, or to get people to know each other more, or to explore their differences and their similarities. So maybe to link to that, a last question in the Mentimeter. Because that's actually the basis of this program of 22 activities. If I would ask you, what do you think is really necessary when you want to build a strong base for teamwork in a diverse team? And I give you 5 elements that can contribute to building a strong or an inclusive team can be attention, or you could say awareness there, result orientation, commitment, responsibility, or the capacity to productively manage conflict. If I give you these 5 elements, what do you think? And you can go back to the Mentimeter if you want to. What do you think is the most important element, or how would you rank these elements when you think about the basis for building a strong and an inclusive team? So let's go to the Mentimeter. No, sorry, again too quick. So how would you rank these elements? And the first one then would be, what do you think is most important to build a strong and an inclusive team? And then the 5th one would be the one that you say, maybe that's the least important one. Would you be able to rank some of these elements? Okay. Trust. Some more questions, some more answers coming in. Commitment seems to be one that you feel is very important. Trust. Conflict management abilities. Okay, so why I wanted to ask this is because indeed that is something that we wanted to ask, add to the research, and also bring to the attention of the organizations. Here we are working, and you might know this model, but I think it can also help to think about inclusive teams. It's a model for strong teams, but we can make it this connection between a strong team and an inclusive team. If you want to have a cohesive team, trust is really, really very important. And you have to really work on this basis, because this will help you work towards commitment, accountability, and results. But often we don't take the time for this trust. We really go towards this result-orientated approach, and we really dive into the action. And this can, of course, have a result, but in the long run, it will be very difficult to uphold your result orientation if you don't work on the other elements of the pyramid, on the basis of the pyramid. So building trust through, for instance, the dialogue or through moments of connecting is very, very important. And then also something which sometimes surprised organizations was the importance also of the conflict management ability. So in this set of activities that we have developed, you will also find some of them working on conflict, because we really feel, and it also has to do when we talk about philosophical differences, a possibility to really work through conflict in a positive way. So these elements, conflict and trust, as important ground rules for inclusive teams. Okay, so to sum it up, we went very quickly through our 10 management principles. You find them here in an overview. As said before, if you want to know more examples, more insights from experts on these different principles, you can go to the website. And on the website, and that's a last element that I want to give you, you will also find a checklist. You can actually check your own organization. And I will just quickly show this to you with regards to the, so I hope you can see the website for inclusive organizations now. And here you find this link to check your SME. And I hope it opens. So you can either download the checklist to check the principles for your own organization, or you can do it here online. And then you will get some feedback on when you've answered all the questions on the position of your own organization for the moment. So that's something that I really want to challenge you, or invite you is a better word, to go through this small checklist, and then on the basis of the checklist, you can go into the different management principles again and find examples, find more inspiration on how to make this real. For instance, tip for measuring and monitoring inclusion. So a quick overview of these elements. And as promised now, I think I was going to share the small video with you. And I think that will again make us see the urgency of working on inclusion for different philosophies of life in organizations. I'm just going to make sure that I'm sharing with sound. So share sound, okay. Oh, am I just a second?
Hi, yeah, no, just do me some good old yoga.
I didn't know you were into yoga.
Hell, yeah, I've been doing it for years.
Should I come back later?
Yeah, I'll email you. Namaste.
No. Yep.
Yeah, we're so excited. We just painted the nursery. It's not long.
Oh, Sal, could you send me those amended documents as soon as you can, please?
Long now until the birth. So come out, baby. We want to meet you.
Your fiance's name's Justine.
What? Give me that. Oh my gosh, you're right. It's meant to say Justin.
Oh.
It's a typo.
What are you doing?
Shredding it. Justin and I can't send these out.
But,
I should really ask for my money back.
well, we have a paper shredder just over there.
Someone getting married?
Okay, so as said, the real you matters and no one should have to hide. Okay, thank you very much. I hope it was nice for you to get some of our insights, and if you have questions, you can find us through the website.
Thank you, Gunilla, so much. The time is up. Thank you all for participating. Again, if you have some questions, we invite you to visit the site and contact Gunilla. And well, we invite you to the next SIETAR Europa webinar. Thank you so much for today. Have a lovely
Bye.
morning, afternoon, evening, regarding where you are.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.